Hey everyone, my name's Mark. I'm 32, and this is the story of how I lost my marriage, found someone who actually cared, and finally learned what peace feels like. When I first met my wife, Jenna, she was everything I thought I wanted. Fun, confident, beautiful, independent. She made me laugh more than anyone else ever had. We'd go on long drives, eat cheap takeout on the hood of my car, talk about our dreams until sunrise. I really believed she was the one. I didn't have a doubt in my mind. The first couple years of marriage were fine. We both worked, saved some money, built a small life together. But slowly, something started to change. She became angry. At first, it was small things. I forgot to take the trash out one night. I didn't fold the towels the right way. I left a glass on the counter. Little stuff, but soon it became constant. No matter what I did, it was wrong. If I worked late, she said I didn't care. If I came home early, she said I was lazy. If I tried to surprise her with dinner, she'd complain it wasn't what she wanted. Every day felt like walking on eggshells. I used to come home smiling, but now I'd sit in my car for 10 minutes before going inside, just trying to get ready for another fight that I kept telling myself it was just stress, that things would get better. But they didn't. Then one day, I met Amy. She worked in the same building a few floors down. She was nothing like Jenna. She was quiet, the kind of person who made you feel calm just by talking to her. We'd bump into each other in the break room, joke about the bad coffee, talk about music. She always asked how I was doing, and actually listened one afternoon, after a rough morning at home, I guess it showed on my face. She looked at me and said, "You look like someone who hasn't had a real smile in a while." That hit me hard, because she was right that we started talking more. At first, just as friends, texting here and there about work or random things. But little by little, she became the only person I felt safe talking to. I didn't feel judged. I didn't feel small. I felt seen. Then one night, Jenna and I had one of our biggest fights yet. It was about milk. Literally milk. I bought the wrong kind, and she yelled for almost an hour. I remember staring at her and realizing I didn't even recognize this person anymore. When she finally stormed off, I just stood there in silence. Then I grabbed my keys and left that I didn't even know where I was going. I just drove. My hands were shaking. My heart was racing. Somehow, I ended up in the parking lot of my office, and the light was still on in Amy's office. When she saw me, she didn't ask questions. She just looked at me for a second and said, "Rough night?" I nodded. Then she gave me a hug, and I swear to God, that one hug felt more like home than my entire house ever had. That night we talked for hours. I told her everything. About the fights, the loneliness, the way I felt invisible in my own marriage. She didn't try to fix me. She didn't tell me what to do. She just listened out. A few weeks later, we kissed for the first time. It wasn't planned. It just happened. I know it was wrong. I know I shouldn't have done it. But for the first time in years, I felt alive. After that, everything moved fast. We started seeing each other secretly. I tell myself it wasn't serious, that I was just escaping. But deep down, I knew the truth. I was falling in love with her. Then one night, Jenna went through my phone. She always did it when she got suspicious, but this time she found everything. The messages, the calls, the photos. She lost it, screamed, threw things, called me every name you can imagine. But this time, I didn't argue. I didn't even try to explain. I just stood there and said, "You win. I'm done." Then I grabbed a small bag, walked out the door, and never went back. That I stayed with Amy that night. I told her everything that happened. She didn't say much, just looked at me with those calm eyes and said, "You can stay as long as you need." And that's when it finally hit me. I wasn't running away from something. I was walking toward peace. The next few months were strange. I felt guilt, relief, fear, everything at once. But Amy never pressured me. She gave me space, helped me move out, helped me get back on my feet. That we started building a small life together, slowly, quietly. We'd cook dinner together, watch shows, take long walks after work. There were no fights, no yelling, no constant tension, just quiet, simple peace. Then one evening, about 3 months later, my phone rang. It was Jenna. Her voice was shaking. She told me she missed me, said she'd been thinking a lot, said she finally realized how much I did for her, and that she'd give anything to go back. She cried and begged me to come home. For a moment, I almost did. Part of me still cared, and hearing her like that hurt. But then I remembered all the nights I sat in silence, praying for peace that I told her, Jenna, I didn't leave because of Amy. I left because I stopped recognizing the man I was with you. You didn't lose me because I cheated. You lost me because you made me feel invisible. Then I hung up, but it's been a year since that night. Amy and I still live together. We don't have much, but our home is full of calm. We argue sometimes, everyone does, but we talk it out. We listen, we care. Sometimes I think about my marriage and wonder if I could have saved it. But honestly, I think it was already gone long before Amy came along. Now, every morning I wake up next to someone who doesn't drain my soul, and I realize peace is better than passion, and maybe that's the real lesson. Sometimes, the right person doesn't make your heart race, they make it rest. Now, check this story. I remember the day everything fell apart, like it was a bad TV rerun. I came into work with the same stupid optimism I always had, thinking my name on a spreadsheet meant something. My boss, a man who wore his suit like armor and his sympathy like a rumor, told me they were downsizing. He said it in a way that made his mouth look smaller and his watch look bigger. I left the office with a cardboard box and neighbors peeking through their curtains like it was a parade that I told myself it was temporary. I told my mother I'd find something by next week, and she said, her voice calm and steady like a kitchen timer, that she'd be okay either way. My friends split into two groups fast. The ones who stayed and the ones who pretended not to see me at the bar. Tom, who'd been my friend since middle school and worked 2 jobs to pay for his kids' soccer cleats, said he'd help. Ryan, who always smiled with interest in other people's lives but never their rent checks, stopped answering. That difference was sharper than I expected. What she said next cut me deeper than losing the job. She left the flat the same week. She sat me down on the couch and said she couldn't live with a loser. Not in those words like a movie line, but close enough that the meaning landed like a door slamming. She packed light, took the photos of us off the wall, and left a note that said I needed to figure myself out. People in the building looked at me like I had a sign that read unfixable. The dog I had been borrowing from a neighbor licked my hand and wagged like nothing had changed. For a while, I let the pity become my routine. I scrolled job listings until my eyes blurred. I sent out resumes and heard polite rejections that had no names attached, just corporate sameness. Interviewers asked where I saw myself in 5 years, and I wanted to answer honestly that 5 years ago, I had a corner office, and now I had a pile of unpaid bills. My confidence leaked out like water from a slow faucet. I hit the bottom in a way that felt like a personal failure and a public spectacle. My mother, who had always been practical and had a laugh that could cut through the worst days, handed me $50 and told me to buy groceries. She didn't offer lectures, she offered lasagna. That small act of faith felt like an anchor. Tom lent me a toolbox and a belief that I had hands that could build things. Between my mother's casseroles and Tom's bad jokes, bad enough to make me laugh when I didn't want to, I started to do odd jobs. I fixed a leaky faucet for Mrs. Delgado, weeded the yard for a retired teacher down the block, painted a fence for a single dad who tipped me with a story about his own father. The money was small but honest. The neighbors began to stitch me back into the building's living tapestry. The idea that saved me arrived on a Tuesday when I was wet from rain and hungry for paid at IT was on that wet Tuesday that I watched a food truck park where the old bakery used to be. The line was long and people were laughing with greasy paper plates and contentment. I remembered how I liked making sandwiches when I was a kid, how my hands remembered the rhythm of flipping a patty. What if I could cook for other people, not just for myself? I started small, frying burgers on a borrowed grill in the alley behind my building. I branded the first day in a way only a desperate person could, matching a cheap sign on cardboard and enough condiments to look like a plan. The first customers were generous because they pitied me. A barista who liked the idea paid me cash and said he hoped it worked. Mrs. Delgado told her neighbors I made the best pickles they'd tried in years. Over the next months, I squeezed lemons, learned to balance heat with patience, and saved my tips like a miser. Tom took a shift when his schedule allowed and always showed up with a grin and a ridiculous playlist. My mother started calling our little Operation Hope, and she would bring a thermos of coffee in the mornings and clap at small victories the way people clap at school plays that I didn't realize how hard I could work until someone else depended on my food being on time. Business changed my hours and my sleep. I learned to read the street like a book. When the office crowd needed a quick lunch, when the construction men wanted something heavy, and when families wanted fries they could bribe their kids with. I taught myself basic bookkeeping from a chipped library book and learned to bargain for fresh meat at dawn. I had a first real employee, a young woman named Jessie who was sharp, quick, and honest. She told me if the burger was undercooked, and I believed her. Loyalty came in tiny, messy pieces. The regular who left $1 extra because his mother used to make the same sandwich. The woman who dropped off a pack of napkins because she'd watched me work in the rain. I measured success in small comforts. The bell that actually jingled, the cash in the register, the fact that someone waved at me on the street not out of pity, but because they liked the food. The hunger that had been emotional turned into a hunger for mastery, and it changed me. Word spread beyond pity. A local blogger wrote a short piece calling our truck a hidden joy. People started coming for the food and stay for the way we remember their names. I scraped together enough to move from the alley to a proper food cart, and then leased a tiny storefront with chipped tiles and a crooked door. People who used to look through blinds began to stand in line. My neighbors nodded with respect rather than the twitching sympathy I had seen before. The losses were still there, like old furniture in a cleaned-out room, but they didn't fill the space anymore. And then she came back, like a shadow, trying to find its place at the party. She texted first, a line that could have been casual if it wasn't so heavy with history. I read it 3 times on my break and felt my chest hollow and tighten at the same time. She said she had been thinking, that maybe she had been hasty, that life had been complicated. I didn't answer immediately. I let that silence be a small but deliberate act of control. My friends had opinions. Ryan, who had been absent at my lowest, sent a message that suggested I take the high ground. Tom said to trust my gut, a voice that had seen me flinch and stand up too many times to doubt. This was the moment people always asked about, the scene in movies where everything gets decided in one breath. She walked in the shop on a rain-streaked afternoon and took in the red stools, the menu board I'd chalked by hand, and the little bell that jingled when the door opened. I saw the way she looked at the other customers, like a stranger surprised she used to know their faces. She told me, through me, that she had been wrong and that she missed us. She explained that she had been afraid of the uncertainty, and now that my name was on a sign, she could see stability. I watched her say this, and I remembered the way she had left, the small mercy of the note, the nights I slept with my phone on the table hoping for an apology that never came. You will never regret being kind, but you might regret what you let back in if you never changed. I told her about the early mornings, the burned hands, the jokes that kept us going. I didn't dramatize my success. I just described the work and the people who had stuck by me. I told her that when she left, I had felt a clarity I hadn't expected, that the emptiness became a map rather than a hole. She listened, and at one point she reached for my hand, but I remembered a time when her fingers had slipped away for good. I felt a coldness settle in me that I didn't know I had until it moved my mouth into an answer that surprised me with its calm. The answer was quiet, and it surprised everyone, including me. I told her I forgave her because I didn't want to carry hate and because forgiveness is quieter than revenge. I also told her that forgiveness didn't mean reopening the door for someone who walked out when the roof was leaking. She asked if that meant there was no chance. I said I didn't know what the future held, but I knew the present. My life was not a stage to be walked back onto when it suited her. She left again, and this time she left without a note. The bell rang, and her footsteps were gone. I didn't go after her. Instead, I washed dishes and listened to the regulars laugh. Jessie put a fresh apron on me and said something about closing time that made everyone laugh. Tom texted that night and said he had noticed the calm in my voice. My mother sent a picture of a ridiculous cat meme with a caption that meant I was foolish and brave, and I smiled in a way that felt real rather than practiced. There's a difference between loneliness and solitude. One eats you, the other teaches you to plant roots. In the years that followed, the food kept us fed and the customers kept us honest. The new woman in my life was not drama or a comeback story. She was someone who fell into place when I was being steady, not when I was proving anything. She had a laugh that arrived, like a clean line, and a patience that was not about waiting, but about showing up. We started a small life that was quiet and full of small, good things. A shared bookshelf, a plant that survived Tom's inconsistent watering, neighbors who now waved without judgment. She didn't fix me, and I didn't need fixing. We were two people who believed in showing up on Tuesdays and in bad weather. Every time someone asked me about forgiveness or whether I had been bitter, I told them the same thing. I forgave, but I didn't forget the shape of what I had been without her. I learned to listen to red flags and to celebrate the people who stayed. I also learned a harder lesson that I sometimes whisper when closing time is quiet. The world will show you who is there for you when you have nothing, and that is the truest test of love. Now listen this.
You ever see two people together and think, man, they're made for each other? That's exactly what everyone thought when Daniel met Emily. Daniel's an old friend of mine. We worked together for a few years. He's one of those calm, kind guys, the kind you can trust with your wallet and your secrets. Never raised his voice, never said a bad word about anyone. He met Emily at a coffee shop near our office. She spilled her drink, he helped her clean it up, classic movie moment. A week later, they were going out. A month later, he was already in love. She was beautiful. No, beyond beautiful. The kind of woman who makes everyone else in the room disappear. Long black hair, those pale green eyes, soft accent, everything about her drew attention, but what really got Daniel wasn't her looks. It was how she made him feel. She listened, she laughed at his jokes, she told him he made her feel safe. He hadn't heard that in years. His last relationship had ended ugly. She cheated, blamed him for it, left him wrecked. So Emily felt like a miracle. Someone gentle. Someone loyal. Someone real. At least, that's what we all thought. When they started dating, she did everything for him. Cooked his meals, brought him lunch at work, even ironed his shirts. She'd say, "You deserve to be taken care of." And Daniel loved that. He said he'd never felt so appreciated before, but even from the outside, something didn't feel right. Emily never talked about her family. Never posted online. Never said where she worked. It was like she existed only in his world, and nowhere else. One night, I asked her what she did for a living. She smiled and said, "I help people." That was it. No details. No company name. Just, "I help people." I brushed it off at first. But after she moved in with Daniel, the questions started to pile up. She began asking about his job, how much he earned, if he had savings, whether he planned to buy a house soon. It wasn't just small talk. She was calculating. Daniel didn't see it. He thought it meant she cared about the future. Then came the visa story. Emily told him her student visa was about to expire. She said if she didn't marry someone soon, she'd be forced to go back home, and she'd never see him again. She cried. Hard, she told him she couldn't lose him, that he was the best thing that ever happened to her, and Daniel, he believed her. 2 weeks later, they were married. No family. No friends. Just a quick courthouse ceremony. I wanted to be happy for him, but something felt off. You know that gut feeling that whispers, something's wrong? Yeah. That. At first, everything looked fine. They went on trips, posted happy photos, smiled all the time, but slowly, that smile on Emily's face started to fade. She began leaving the house more often. Dressed up. Makeup. Heels. Going out with friends, she said. But Daniel never met those friends. One night, she didn't come home at all. When she finally walked in the next morning, she looked calm, like nothing had happened. She said her phone died. That she'd slept at a friend's place. Daniel wanted to believe her so bad that he did, until the day he found the money that he was doing laundry, and inside one of her drawers, an envelope with stacks of cash. $5,000. Maybe more. When he asked where it came from, she got defensive. Said it was from side work. He asked what kind. She said, "Don't ask questions you don't want the answer to." That night, she screamed at him for the first time, accused him of not trusting her. Said she gave up everything for him. Then she packed a bag and left. Weeks went by. No call. No message. Then one evening, she called out of nowhere. Calm. Cold, she told him she was sorry. Said she did love him, but not in the way he thought. That she came here looking for security, not love. That he was kind, but too naive to understand what she needed. He hung up. Didn't say a word. A month later, one of our coworkers spotted her in another state, fancy restaurant, expensive clothes, sitting with some older man in a suit. She looked exactly the same, perfect smile. Perfect posture. Like nothing ever happened. Daniel divorced her as soon as he could. He didn't want revenge. Didn't even want answers. Just peace. He told me once, you never really know someone, you only know the part they let you see. And man, he's right, sometimes the most dangerous people aren't the ones who hurt you on purpose. They're the ones who pretend to love you, until they get what they came for.